Welcome to Angels, Positivity, and Love, another episode 2024. Thank you so much for tuning in. 2023 was fantastic, 50 taped episodes. It was our inaugural year with absolutely amazing guests then. And we have amazing guests booked into November already of 2024. Speaking of guests, we have an incredible Dr. Leanne Whitney here with us today, transformation coach, depth psychologist, super published, highly credentialed, consciousness researcher, effectively had a consciousness event in 2020, but also from her 20s went through a period of illness that helped her slow down and explore the universe herself more. She's done fantastic work for others. She appears as a guest host on Jeffrey Mishlov's New Thinking Aloud. It's one of the longest running programs in America on spirituality, the universe, religion, philosophy, and so on. A lot of intellectual, amazing folks have passed through those doors and been on that show. Jeffrey Mishlove, just to mention him, won the Bigelow contest, the Afterlife contest in 2023, spent 6 months putting together a paper that won a $500,000 prize with 20 others who also earned some money from that. Leanne hosts that show occasionally, so check her out. She's been a guest. She's been a guest there. She's been a guest at Buddha at the Gas Pump with Rick Archer, if I got the name correctly. Always mess up the names. And just an absolute wonderful delight. She was on our Mind, Body, Spirit panel in the fall with Paul Sugar and Ewan Briach, the Welsh theater director. We're having them back on again in early April, so tune in for that. Leanne, thank you so much for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love. We are so lucky, so fortunate to have you on.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. It's nice to be here with you and your community.
Oh, thank you. And it's a growing community. So a reminder to everybody, please like, subscribe, comment, share what you enjoyed about what Leanne is about to tell us, and also subscribe. Leanne, you've had a bunch of experiences in life and you've turned around and been able to share yourself, your energy with others to help people grow and open up. Can you take us through how you got oriented in this direction when you were in your 20s?
I could also even go earlier than that. I can't remember if I shared this when I was on your show previously, but I actually went to Catholic school in elementary school, and I was born Catholic. And for me, that experience was very rigid. And what I saw in the school with the nuns and the teachers and the priests, it didn't feel like the teachings of Christ. It didn't feel like the teachings of Christ. It felt rigid and controlling. I'm a believer in structure, and actually, I think religions hold a really valuable place for things like ritual and structure. But for me, as a child, there was this repulsion towards the feeling tone of that community and what I was involved in. So I'm going to sort of predate, go all the way back there. Like most of us probably in adolescence and through development, there was a bit of rebellion and a wild side. And yeah, when I got to my 20s, I wasn't the healthiest. I sort of lived on a diet of M&Ms and Diet Pepsi. and so my body wasn't going to support me with that kind of diet. I had gone to boarding school, by the way, so there was nobody looking over my shoulder telling me what to do at that point. And then, yeah, I had this very, very intense experience in my early 20s, actually. It was in direct relationship to my father in that moment. But I'm trying to set the stage because I think all these other things built up into why my resilience crumbled in that moment. And my whole physical system just went, not dead. I didn't die. But in a way, I did. I lost use of my hands. For several days, I couldn't pick up a knife and a fork and feed myself. I couldn't wash my own hair. I lost use of my hips and my legs. I couldn't walk upstairs. It was several years to come back from that. And now diet being one of the key things that brought me back. And interestingly, after that experience, when I was being treated at all the top hospitals in Boston, they would give me medicine for each symptom. I was diagnosed with costochondritis, rheumatoid arthritis, MS, and they were sending me to all different departments, and they would give me medicines, but nobody sent me to a nutritionist. I mean, it's almost like wild to really think about that. And one of my best friend actually in the UK sent me a book called Raw Energy. She said, I think you could really use this. And that was it. My diet, which is a key component. I mean, where, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, we have to have a strong container in order to sit with this beautiful energy in this lifetime. And so I started to make my container stronger at that point. And yeah, got myself better through that, and a lot of Eastern wisdom traditions at that point. I started to practice yoga, I started meditation, um, supplements, herbal supplements, and I was in a yoga room, yeah, in the early aughts. Actually, it was in 2000, July of 2000. I was in a yoga room, and I just finished the practice, and I was on my way out the door, and I had what's known in the religious studies literature as a pure consciousness event. So here I had, built my physical health back up, and I was doing these beautiful practices, which are amazing, but I hadn't yet studied any of the philosophy to do with pure consciousness or pure awareness. Or again, I'm in a yoga room, but I just didn't know the philosophical underpinnings to that system of thought.
Can you take us
So
through that? I said in the intro that was might have been 2020, but I meant 2000. Can you take us through, though? I mean, you had just finished the yoga class, so it wasn't right in the middle of it and you disrupted it. But can you take us through exactly what happened, so we have a better understanding of what that experience was like? Not that we can grasp it all the way, but can you share what happened?
I certainly can. And if I can even, again, back up again. So this was like July of 2000. In January of 2000 was the first time I walked into that yoga studio. And I put my mat to the right of the room. And this is phenomenologically, this is just fascinating, which is why I share it every now and then. Can't remember if I shared it on Buddha at the gas pump, but my mat's on the right of the room. I've never been in this studio before. I have no idea who the teachers are. I mean, I know nothing about it. Just somebody had recommended it. And I knew in 2000, I was committing to a regular yoga practice. Somebody walked past me. I actually was with my mother at the time. She was visiting me, and I was looking at her and talking. Somebody walked past me to the left because my spine shook from the bottom of my coccyx all the way up to the top. And so I turned to look, and it was this, youngish man, and he went to open the windows, and I thought, oh, wow, that, must be the yoga assistant. And in my head, I thought, I'm probably going to have some kind of process with this guy, because who does that happen? Like, I had never had anything like that in my life. And of course, come to pass, he ends up being the yoga teacher. And I never had any kind of communication with him uh, after that point, before this event, and any direct, these were big classes. I mean, at that point in LA, yoga was huge. You could fit 100 people in that room. I mean, we were mat to mat to mat. And it was a bit of an intimidating experience to have my spine shake like that. And again, I had no context for it. In my head at that point, I was just like, oh, isn't that interesting? And then here, July of 2000, I'm like the last one to leave the room. And I look this gentleman in the eyes, and this flash of light. Now, whether it came out of his eyes or was something that came from within me, that's for that's where you phenomenologically want to study these things. Absolutely. And yeah, it was less than a fraction of a second. I couldn't even tell you how long, but it was an experience of non-duality, of non-separation. Consciousness is all there is. it's eternal and absolute. Knowledge is structured in it. I mean, that was the takeaway. That was it, and it almost like, sure, this isn't literal. I'm just telling you how the experience felt. Like it burnt something in my neurological pathways, and there was no turning around. There was just no turning around from that event. It was only now that event forward, and how to merge that event with with the phenomena, with the contentless consciousness, and now all the contents, not only of my past history, but where I would be walking. And that's what the last 20 years, 23 years have been, is walking that journey. Um, it took me 2 years before I even sought help or tried to dialogue about it with anybody. I just sat with it on my own for 2 years. Probably not the wisest move in retrospect. But I was reading like a book a week around the soul and spirituality. And then, yeah, around 2000, I was a documentary filmmaker at the time. I made a film called The Fire Within. And then I decided to make a documentary about the evolution of human consciousness. And that's actually what led me way back then to Jeffrey Mishlove and what is now the New Thinking Aloud channel on YouTube. These interviews that I did back in 2005 with Jeffrey himself, with pioneer and legendary physicist Russell Targ, I mean, remote viewing guru, Peter Russell, long-term TM practitioner and author of several books, and Gary Zukov, author of Seed of the Soul. So I never cut the book. I mean, I never finished the film. I didn't really know how to cut the third act. And so from that point, I kind of let the film sit, and spirit, if you will, guided me to get an advanced graduate degree in depth psychology. And I went on to study intensively in the academy. And then I wrote my first book, Consciousness in Jung and Patañjali. And that's all led to now sort of beautiful experiences like this.
You've done incredible explaining a lot. Take us through at least the book, the consciousness book, where you take East and West. Just give us some context. Did you travel to India? How did you end up studying so much on Jung? Obviously, there's a lot of reasons people take on Jung. And take us through some of those dynamics.
I love that you pinpointed that question. So again, this best friend of mine who sent me the Raw Energy book, after my pure consciousness event, she handed me Memories, Dreams, and Reflections one time when I was visiting her in England, and she said, I think you're really gonna like this. And I said, I read it on the plane, I think, on the way home, or at least like, 80, 90% of it. I couldn't. I was like, whoa. And I could tell this man, Carl Jung, had had deep spiritual experiences. And I, at that point, couldn't get enough. And as synchronicity would have it, once I got home, friends gifted me with a set of the collected works. Just a friend that I knew here in West LA who had the collected works. I can't remember why he had it, but he was like, well, here, you obviously need this. And I got gifted a set of the collected works, which you might actually be able to see some of it behind me on my bookshelves. And yeah, I started reading like Archetypes in the Collective Unconscious, and chemical studies and symbols of transformation. And after years of that, it was like, oh my, I need to go into the academy and get a degree. So that's kind of what led me into
Which academy?
I went to Pacifica Graduate Institute up in Santa Barbara, not too far from LA, where there's the Jungian oriented approach to depth psychology. So again, I was in the perfect place, not far from, because Jung is kind of challenging to find within the academy. He's been very marginalized in large measure because of his belief in psychic phenomena or archetypes or astrology. People found him, far too edgy or, too mystical. So he didn't get folded into a lot of academic programs. But again, I was lucky enough to be 2.5 hours away from a graduate institute that focused around his work. Uh, and now, what year are we? Now we're in 2008. So I'd been reading the collected works on my own. Uh, because I had that pure consciousness event in a yoga room, I had started reading Patanjali. So through those 8 years, I had been reading Jung and been reading texts of yoga, primarily Patanjali. And then once I got into the academic setting, it just became, I thought maybe I would pick the film back up, but it just became like my piece of work that felt right to really get into the nitty gritty of where the differences are between Jung and yoga. And of course, I wasn't alone in that. There was other scholars who had already been just trudging this path before me. Harold Coward comes to mind. But yeah, it was mine to do, and I wrote a book called Consciousness in Jung and Patanjali, and I really parsed the difference that I see between the two systems of thought, if you will. Or and the thing about Jung and Patanjali is there's theory, but they're both based on practices,
Mm.
right? And to take me into the greatest level of healing from my pure consciousness event, I found that Patanjali's work had what I needed as much as Jung did as well. For a certain point of the path, I felt there was a limitation ultimately within the Jungian canon. And so that's what drove me to write the book.
Very interesting. Can you jump us before we come right back to where we're at? Can you jump us to what you do today for people? You have a full practice and you're a depth psychologist, you're a transformation coach. Can you take us through why someone out there would contact you, how you work? Do you do group settings? Do you do retreats? Is it just really one-on-one? Is it Zoom? Is it in person? It's all the above. Can you take us through today where you're at now with your practice?
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of questions packed into one. It is all of the above. I do absolutely run retreats sometimes. This year, actually, I've developed a transformational coaching certification program. It's a 2-year program. It has an emphasis in somatic integration therapy. So with my colleague Shaila Sarkissian, who is the owner of the Embodied Yoga School, we will be co-leading and co-teaching and certifying transformational coaches with this emphasis in somatic integration therapy.
Okay.
Um,
One quick thing. Can you define somatic therapy for anybody tuning in? For years, there's just certain things, whether it's Jung or somatic therapy. For me, a lot of the lingo can just go right over my head. I still haven't read Jung. I'm so bad. Forgive me. But somatic therapy, can you define it for us? What distinguishes it from, everything else?
Yeah, well, somatics means the body. So basically, making sure that the transformational process is integrated all the way down into the body, and then from there into the family system, into the community, into the ecological. So it has to do with grounding and body. So somatics means body, basically, physics. So it's not just psyche. Sure,
So it's
absolutely
not
psyche.
just at the talking level and the agreeing on stuff level and moving forward step by step structure. It's also a physical, energetic level as well.
Absolutely. Like if
Okay.
a lot of times when people have traumatic experiences in their childhood, the amygdala becomes really inflamed, and it's a lot of breath work and yeah, a lot of focused attention of grounding, making sure you're in your surroundings and your feet around the ground. And so that will definitely be a large part for sure of,
And
of what
you're
we do
you're
here.
helping all types of career types out there, executives and so on, people who are carrying a lot of stress. And can you tell us a little bit more about what people come to you for and how they, again, at some point walk out the door feeling lighter?
Yes. And integrated, like, integrated. And I love that you use the word lighter. Yeah, joyful. And perhaps we can get to that at some point, but it's coding with the positive affects versus the negative affects. And so transformational coaching is my practice with this emphasis in somatics, but obviously I'm a Jungian oriented depth psychologist. And so what that means is bringing the material that we're unaware of into consciousness. Why is it that I have a habit of feeling anxious when I go into meetings? Or, that could be somebody's questions if they come to me as an executive, like just crippled by anxiety and having to take beta blockers or something. Like, can you help me understand where this is coming from? Where does it originate? How can I develop practices and the right way, the right view of my right livelihood so that I can show up in full power? And that's also another frame or way to look at it. It's people want their authentic power. And by that, I don't mean power in the external or an egoic sense of power. It's a power that comes from within, from being aligned with source, God, goddess, whatever. The title doesn't matter, but it's, a lot of the work that you do with angels positivity, it's encouraging people to drop back into, and we can get, this is another rabbit hole we could go down, or an angle we could take into what the Sufi mystics, Saharvati, I struggle with his name a little bit, but Henry Corbin was the great scholar who was a colleague of Jung, who really researched that mystical level of Islam, of the imaginal, of being able to, it's in, which is like Jung's archetypal level or Plato's ideational forms. It's allowing the psyche to drop back, to be supported from I don't always like to say just the ancestors, because you know what? There's some ancestors out there, or although I like the way you phrase it. You say that's it. Once they've crossed over, they've got their lessons. So everybody's sitting back there, like with their lessons and bringing those lessons forward. I think Jung would actually say the same thing. I mean, that's why the dead were ringing his doorbell at one point and, trying to bring the messages forward through him. Boy, I'm sorry. I hope that wasn't too
Go
much
in. No,
information.
that was beautiful. Look, Sufism acknowledges angels, acknowledges that it's really big, the universe, and it's I have a book up on the shelf. I can't remember which person penned it, but it just has incredible stories of angels coming in from all over the world. Again, a beautiful Sufi book. I wish I had known we were going to talk about it. I have the cover up to show it. Why don't you take us a little bit back in the Eastern direction? Have you been to India once, twice, 20 times? You're going next week. Talk us through at least India a little bit. How
I
has it
will.
had an influence on you?
Sure, sure. But just to do one more thing about that, imaginal, it's like the real, the imaginal, and imagination. And again, we could do a whole show on this, because I think it's really important for people to understand that dropping back into the archetypal level where there is structure, like how Jung would say it, it's like sort of the eel that makes its way to Bermuda. It's the patterns of behavior in biology. And we're talking about right view, and that's the Buddha, right view, right livelihood, right speech. There is a structure to, or the Buddha would say there's two arrows. There, of course, life is suffering. Nobody's getting out of here alive. But the other arrow, if we don't have that right view and the heart is open and there's joy and there's just this phenomena is going to transform and we're going to come, we're going to go, then we suffer. And that right view is important. And the imaginal, and where the imaginal and the imagination sort of weave together, is a really important razor's edge. And I'm going to leave it at that for
Mhm.
now. But I do think we could come back to that at some point. Okay, India.
Well,
Yes,
before we
I've
do
been.
India, so there's
Uh,
proper understanding. There's wind
yeah.
horse, and as Geronimo would say, grab that horse by the mane, ride, ride, ride. Don't look left, don't look right, and don't look back. But that would be Native American. Let's go to India. Absolutely.
Okay. I have been 2 times, 3 times, definitely 2 times. Once before I went to my graduate program, for sure. I think it was 2005 or 2006, actually, when I was still making the movie about the evolution of human consciousness. I went along the Ganges to a lot of the sacred sites, um, Haridwar, Allahabad, Varanasi. Just in my heart, I just loved my time there. Yeah, I spent a couple weeks, and it was so transformative. It was delicious. I'm struggling because my heart is just sort of feeling it. Delicious is the best way that I can say it. Like, I felt so at home in that country, and not that I didn't run into trouble, because I did a couple times, uh being taken advantage of, and that wasn't very pleasant. But yeah, it was just yummy and delicious, and going into so many of their sacred sites and their places of worship, and the Hindu pantheon of gods and goddesses just really resonates with me. I love bhakti yoga. Like, I practice asana for sure. Um, that's been a big part of my path, but so has karma yoga and yana yoga and bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga being the chanting, the
Hmm.
singing the names of the divine forms. And yeah, and that level of my bhakti yoga was just so alive when I put my feet down on the ground in India, actually both times. So yeah, I would love to go back at some point, and I'm sure I will.
Huh. Okay, back to your consciousness film, the evolution of consciousness in man. You only picked the smallest topic there ever was. Could there be a greater, broader, more important thing? And maybe it's not finished for a reason, because now you have even more historical perspective, and think about if things are accelerating a little. I mean, mankind could get it all done in 3 hours, have a higher consciousness. We'd need a lot of iPad satellites turned on, and somehow you'd have to get everybody saying, sure, I wouldn't mind listening for 5 minutes. Good luck with that. But a film could go a long way to helping people slow down, open up more, and appreciate more in the moment.
I think so, sure, and I definitely would love to go back to it at some point. It's definitely not off the table,
Hmm.
as far as I'm concerned. I am looking forward to guest hosting on New Thinking Aloud, and interviewing and exploring in that way. But yeah, the film definitely isn't off the table. I would love to come back to it at some point. And it's funny when you just said, you picked a big topic. That's exactly what Jeff said to me the first time I contacted him.
I love it. Look,
That's exactly what he said.
today you would be able to get even more of the usual suspects, those experts out there across, cultures, countries, practice areas, and so on to weigh in. But at the end of the day, it's something here beyond our grasp, but not, as you've pointed out. Where else can you take us in terms of consciousness? I can never pronounce Patanjali. You can say it the correct way.
Patanjali.
Yes, thank you. Where can you take us in those directions? There's still nuances in there that the audience would probably love to hear about.
Well, but pointing to what you're saying, like about the film, or look, I was in a yoga room in an afternoon in the middle of broad daylight when I had that pure consciousness event. I didn't ask for it. I had no idea what it was. And now, you could say, well, you set yourself up for it because you were doing yoga. You had already been doing like a daily practice for months. You had begun to meditate. Um, I think I don't remember actually the year exactly I was exposed to memories, dreams, reflections. It was right after that. I'm thinking. Um, but so maybe I set myself up for it. Yet, I mean, the universe could do this to all of us. Universe, again, I don't even what word you want to use there. God, Goddess, Spirit. Tomorrow, today, right now. Like, if that is what was meant to transpire, it would happen instantaneously. Now, from my own personal experience of it, I didn't have the background. I didn't have the structure. I didn't know what to do with it. Like I said, I sat on it for 2 years before I even opened my mouth about it. Channels like yours, New Thinking Aloud, work like I do as a transformational coach, people need a framework, they need resilience, they need communities of support. So maybe, and I'm going to drop this in some cauldron between you and I and the world. like we need these communities of support, and perhaps, and maybe we're already doing this. I mean, and but the universe can literally send that kundalini up our spine, everybody's spine tonight, if it wanted to, or some kind of opening in broad daylight like I had. Why doesn't it happen? Well, it's like a flower. It opens when the again, I think environment is so important. The soil, the way the light hits those petals or whatever, and then the flower just goes. It's kind of the same, perhaps, with us. We are nature.
And free will is
100%.
paramount. And understanding the difference between your flow when you're up here versus your flow here. Not all thinking is, rejecting, judging that precludes possibility and, fear or stress and all the rest. When your thinking's down here, you're creative, you're one with the writing the last chapter of your book, or one with the soccer ball, and you're like, I'm going to get my 5th goal on the pitch. So free will is paramount. You're supported is all I can say. And there are angels, unconditional love figures from India, Native American figures. There's the Jinn category. I only know one Jinn, who's East Asian mysticism. Shapeshifters, I've never said that on the program before, but an unconditional love one that's very, very unconditional love and here to support and teach. But also, from really far out. Angels are all shapes, sizes, colors from really far out sometimes. But Audrey Hepburn's an angel. People meet and hear and see her. You can walk with her. You can hold her hand. And I'll leave it at that. I try not to add more than that because I feel like it's each person's opportunity this lifetime, and if not this lifetime, 2 lifetimes from now, to allow for more and to experience what they're going to let themselves experience. And that is something, Leanne, where you set the table for folks. Tell us a little bit about that. Can you share we'll call it a war story, but it's not. It's a heart story, a peace story, unconditional love, compassion story, without using any names and without naming the time frame or anything else. Can you give us something where you've set the table for someone and you've watched that beautiful transformation happen?
Okay, but I do, yes, I'll go to that in a second. I do want to address the free will piece. Now, the way I teach it is that the appearance of choice arises until the lesson of love has been learned. When we look and understand the background that people come from, it's hard to say that they have free will. They are very patterned and conditioned by their environment. If they've never seen the color red, they just don't even know what it is. The family system, the culture is so closed down. It's kind of like even with psychic abilities or what Russ Targ has done, remote viewing or, all of Jeffrey Michel's body of work. When the culture says no and you have to follow the family line, the cultural line, you just, again, I think free will, it's a really sort of the appearance of choice is there undoubtedly, and the healing use of choice is what we want to in my field of work as a depth psychologist and a transformational coach. The healing use of choice is exactly where you want to deliver people, that they have their agency and they have the capacity to make the next best healing choice for themselves and for whatever, their family, their culture, the globe. So I'm going to leave free will I just want to
Sure.
round that out a little bit
I've
because
got a quote from Geronimo from 2017 that I thought was pretty good. People choose negativity, just thinking, the rest of that over heart. Often you've got the rest of that.
without
And I'll pull it
realizing
back.
it.
Often, without realizing it, they still suffer the consequences. Ignorance is not an excuse. And that's just once you realize the difference in flows, as angels have put it, you're off to the races. One angel put it as an undergraduate degree, graduate degree. You got to have one before the other. And the undergraduate degree is discovering the difference. What's the difference between love, awareness, whatever. There's 1,000 cultures and ways to say this versus this. I love that. I thought it was really pretty. That I could get my head around. There's not a lot I get my head around, but that I could follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I said, and for me, the way I teach it is the appearance of choice arises until the lesson of love has been learned. Because then once you're in your heart, you just know to go towards those loving healing. What's best for all, not just a separate me. What is best here? Where is the flow of integration? Because ultimately, what is integration? I mean, that's the root word is integrare, no, whole, it's wholeness. And we are, from the non-dual perspective anyway, it's non-duality where we are one. And so you want to make decisions that benefit the whole, not an isolated human being.
Let's go to daily living. How can a person slow down more? What are some of your top tips that you don't mind sharing out loud? Don't give us, your absolute best tip that you save for your practice day to day, for your clients, but what can you share with us for how to breathe more, live more, allow more, love more?
Oh, I don't mind sharing because, as you know, my practice is full, so I don't mind giving out any of the top tips. I think it's important that people know what works, and there's science around them. I mean, a gratitude practice, for sure. Uh, the way I teach it in my practice, and what I would encourage people is that a morning practice is just really, really important. That those first 10 minutes of the day, it really can set the tone of the day. So, and if you can do longer, great. If you can do 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes of breath work, gratitude, maybe a little bit of yoga asana, uh, some meditation, a mixture of some journaling, whatever feels right for you at the time. All the above, string them all together. Maybe some scripture reading, but that to set the tone of the day where it's what I call the vertical axis, where this connection to source, God, goddess, that's it. And so your spine is erect, you're grounded, and then you walk forward into your day into what can often be this and that's what I call the horizontal axis, is more the in this beingness, the reality of form with our human selves and our collective and our community. I call that the horizontal axis, and you want to be able to have that stability with what Jung would call the religious function of the psyche or a spirit. If you're connected into that, I put it back there, it's everywhere, but that deeper level, yeah, and you bring that forward into your day, because it can be a lot of chaos, especially in our culture. Oh my God, 2024, we're going into another presidential election in the US. I mean, um there's two main wars. There's multiple wars going around the world. There's still a lot of uh starvation and things that we haven't addressed. We have an ecological crisis, so there's a lot of chaos. So waking up and really anchoring is, to me, gold. Gold.
Nice. Okay, are you ready to have a little bit of lit sage blown to you? I do this on every show. We did it before the show just to let the audience know. She's done it before, and it's not, we just got to make sure we're not going to flub on the show. We haven't done that yet. There'll be 90 something episodes into November. Hopefully we never strike out. This is really easy to allow for. I light some sage. Irish angel mystic Lorna Byrne did not catch the sage in Ireland, but she said, I smell daisies and roses. So I was like, first, internally, I was like, externally, I was like, yes, good job. So I'm going to light some sage. My only rule for anything, and I'm super lazy, not lazy, light, easygoing, not lazy, about this, meaning I only have one bit of rule or structure. Give yourself permission to let go and ask angels to make it nice. So if you need help smelling this through two screens, even if you're watching this in 2026 when we have 2.6 million subscribers, and this particular program has been watched 3 million times. Play this over and over again until you get it. If you have to go for a run, do yoga. By then, you'll have seen her next film that has not yet come out. Give yourself permission to smell some sage. Let angels bring it to you. It's not about time and space. Time's a construct of the mind. I'm quoting Geronimo. Okay, nothing I say is completely original. Here's some sage. Leanne, obviously catch sage in California, LA area, but catch some flowers, or India, catch temple incense that just, you're like, oh my God, Michael, this was better than the show. Thank you for that incense. But it's not from
Or
me.
the
It's from,
flowers floating down the Ganges.
yeah.
Yeah.
So get that vibe, and why not?
Yeah.
We can have that vibe anytime. We don't know it. And that's the rub. And that's what Leanne was talking about, is you've forgotten. We all need to remember if you can remember to remember. And Songyal Rinpoche taught this for 35 years to his students. Remember to remember. So again, nothing that I say is original, but catch what you can catch. You're smelling sage.
Yes.
Okay. Anything extra? Ask your crew to make it nice. What else are you getting?
Oh, once you said the flowers, I got that image of being on the Ganges in Varanasi and all the flowers there. So yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay, I'm going to snub it out. I've learned to do it completely so I don't smoke out this office during the show. At one point, I had smoke behind the laptop and I'm like, oh my God, it's on fire, but it wasn't. Okay, it's out. May I put up a couple photos for you? But what I would suggest is, if it's an angel or Carl Jung, we'll do him in a second. Two angels, Carl Jung. Can you get a topic? First, make sure you get something private, get a hug, but get a topic to take us somewhere, for a few minutes, because why not? I've had guests do that before. You're totally plugged in. Here's joy, the angel joy is the emotion joy. Hear laughter, catch an answer, get a suggestion where to take us. I'll keep all three fingers up.
Oh, I definitely have one. I feel like I might have said the same one when I was with Paul and Iwan in our
Oh,
group
that's
chat.
okay.
I'm a big fan of affective neuroscience, and Jaak Panksepp and Mark Solms, that lineage of work and that body of work. And there's positive affects. So basically, he was called the rat tickler, Jaak Panksepp. And, God bless the animals that we have to do all this research on to get our answers, even though, again, I feel like these answers are sitting inside Buddha's Eightfold Path, right relationship. But I'm going to name these affects. First of all, seeking is this primary they're emotional primes. Basically they're core aspects through all mammalian species, including humans. So novelty seeking, nurturing care, joyful play. But then when you move away from, just think about that, novelty seeking, there's nurturing care, there's joyful play. And now we start to get separated from that. You're going to fall into panic, grief, distress, anger, fear. And then the other one is lust, which is, our sexual drive, which is positive. Same with our drive towards spirituality for humans, maybe less so for animals, although I guess I don't know. But so I'm going to leave lust to the side just because it's a little bit different. But that's where we want to code for those positive affects. Like that's where we're feeling good in our bodies and as a species, as a collective and on the planet, that we feel nurtured by the planet. And it's a joyful, the meaning of being here is we're connected into that. Oh, this is novel. We're in human form. We get to have this experience on Mother Earth. And once we start any of that separation distress, you're going to move away from joy and you're going to move into the panic and the grief. So that's what I would say. Every time you bring that card up, it's what comes to me, because the joyful play, and again, in the research, it's it's very clear that as baby cubs, as baby mammals, we, baby humans, that joyful play, we need that opening in that affective pathway in the the mind, emotional, embodied cortical system. Like we need it. So yeah, I
Cool.
hope that, does that make sense? Like,
It does.
okay,
It
good.
does. I've got another angel for you, Charlotte, everybody's favorite school teacher from third form. If you're from Canada, Australia, New Zealand, or third grade, Mrs. Johansson, whoever was nice to you, not the one that was mean. She's a bit older, been around the block. She's got words meant to help you expand. If you don't mind, get a hug, get a private answer for something, but then catch a quick theme or reminder for us all. That's nice and easy. Good?
I'm good.
Okay,
Yeah.
what have you got for us?
First of all, the importance of teachers and then the value that they offer. Good teachers who offer good environments, right? When we're young, we spend so many hours in school. And I think in this country, we're in the US, we undervalue our teachers greatly. So the archetype of the teacher needs much more reverence and respect, especially in elementary school and high school. And of course, the teachers who make impact and change people's lives are worth their weight in gold. Like people carry them with them forever, you know.
Can we do a definition of archetype for folks? Because I got stuck in somatic therapy, I got stuck in archetype, a lot of lingo out there. And if you don't have somebody to explain it to you, one more non-duality. I somehow ended up writing that when I'm like 24 years old on Wall Street in New York City. I'm keeping like a little diary. All these cool quotes get in there, but non-duality makes it. And I'm like, I don't know what non-duality is. It's not till I'm in Austin in 2011. I'm sitting in a Kia parking lot, waiting for my car to get serviced. And I'm sitting on a curb. Leaves are swirling around. I'm reading Pieces Every Step that a friend in Steiner Ranch had given me. It's a short little book. The only non-sentence in the whole book by Thich Nhat Hanh, people can meet him, is blah, 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 not to, or non-duality. Something, 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 non-duality, period, not to, period. And at that moment, I had the epiphany. I'm like, that was what I waited 25 years for a definition of what non-duality is. And if people need another way to say non-duality, which you're going to explain the other term for us in just a second, archetype, but just think of it this way, the Queen of Hawaii described in heaven, there's but one. You're one with all, you're one with the soccer ball on the pitch. You just would know how to score 5 soccer goals in a row. But here, as we live, we give labels to everything. We're removed. We're not in our hearts. We're not in our bodies, as Paul Sugar would say from your panel, and so on. And you have a probably great way to say non-duality because you're basically a non-duality teacher, which I didn't say in the intro. If you want to tackle non-duality first, but make sure you give us an archetype explanation as well, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah. Non-duality, not to, is important in the sense that because everything, right? Whole, everything's linked. We neither want over enmeshment, so it's just this like you can't parse anything, but you also don't want so much differentiation that it seems like the subject and object are completely separate. You have too much differentiation, now you got dissociation. You have too much linkage, there's too much enmeshment, and you can't see the territory. So that's my way to kind of get in there and say not to or non-dual. Hope that's helpful. Archetype, archetypos, primordial imprint. So I'm going to, by way of definition, think about a lot of the people that you talk about. Or let's go to the Buddha or Patanjali. One of the core archetypes that Jung would talk about is the archetype of the self, which is the archetype of the God image. And so this idea of primordial imprint, which implies that there's an imprinter, really, but this idea that there is, a structure in the psyche, that we alluded to this earlier, actually, when I brought up eel making its way to Bermuda. It's like it's a pattern of behavior. It's a pattern of behavior, like the pattern of behavior in biology. And so, the archetype of the teacher would be somebody who loves to give wisdom and knowledge out to the community. And we all had, again, from the Jungian perspective, like that is at the deeper level of the collective, what he would call the collective unconscious of the psyche. And again, Jung's collective unconscious has to do with contents, so it's the realm of learning and knowing, learning and embodying wisdom for sure. So I love the archetype of the self is, to me, the archetype that everybody wants to relate to or get in touch with. And your work is a beautiful way to do that, to drop back into the, again, the ancestors, the teachers, the great teachers that have walked this terrain, have, and what they asked the Buddha, why incarnate, or something like, there was a question and he said to touch the earth or something like that. It's like, I love that. It's like to be here, be fully present in the body, but connected super connected to the other realms and the ancestors. And that's the support of that archetypal structure, if you will.
Hmm.
And structure, I'm trying to think here, is that too, I don't want people to hang on to that in a really rigid way, right? Because like we're talking about, like the way the eel makes its way to Bermuda, the way the chick breaks out of the egg, it's like it's in there, it's instinct. So it's something that's psychologically patterned, but in an instinctual way, just like you would have instinct in the body. It's also instinct in the psyche. And that's one of the strengths of Jungian oriented depth psychology, is this idea of the religious function of the psyche, that your psyche wants, needs, it's the very lifeblood of who we are, is to be connected into that archetypal realm, into those deeper regions. Then those instincts can really come forward and you can embody your authentic power as a wise being.
Excellent. I've got a guardian angel for you. My guardian angel, she's oceany, water, light waves of energy and water, professorial, speaking of which, Min is good enough for a name. And catch an ocean scent in the air, at the same time, get a reminder on something that you could share with all of us. For those who want to look at my website, she's a white ball of light overlapping with another white ball of light on the front page of the website. Just another one. You can put your hand out and feel her vibe for those at home. Okay, what did you get, Leanne?
Oh, it's so interesting. So you said water. Um, but also what was coming to me actually was caves and the water, how it laps the earth, and also like the Grand Canyon. That's what was coming to me, like the canyons and the caves and the ancient wisdom and embodied knowledge that the earth, knows and has lived, and what we need to um, always reflect on or carry in our hearts, because this is like, again, back to the non-duality piece, it's like holographic, everything's enfolded. William Blake, I believe, said all the world in a grain of sand. It's that the ancient waters carving the Grand Canyon, that level of experience might sound really fantastical to some of your audience, but it's in us.
And I've mentioned this on a show, or at least the panel or something in the past, but it's that whole Joshu. Green, I think, did a translation. This would be, I don't know if I'm going to get this right, 600 AD, but a Zen master, originally maybe from China, Zhao Zhao. But the point is, a student comes running up to the classic teacher and says, "What about it when I seek to be Buddha?" And the teacher says to the student, "What a tremendous waste of energy." And the student, not being one to quit in that moment, said, "Well, what about it when I don't waste energy?" And the teacher said, "In that case, you are Buddha." I had to do that little quip. I have Carl Jung for you next. Go ahead and, if you don't mind, put two hands out like he's a fireplace, catch some sparkle in your hands, and hear a beautiful topic to address. Get a reminder, get a hug on your back. Breathe, 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 breathe. And do you hear laughter from him as well? Some sparkle, some zip.
Oh yeah, oh sure, he's sparkly. There's no doubt.
What can you, I mean, it might have been private, and if it's private, leave it that way. But what can you share with us that would be just absolutely phenomenal? Literally.
Well, it's so you move so fast sometimes. I was loving what you were saying about the Buddha, that energy and information flow, and yeah, the dynamics of the psyche. I think Carl would be right on board with that. He definitely said, "I'm glad I'm young, and I'm not a Jungian." that energy and information flow, and we don't want to over conceptualize who was the Buddha, who was Jung. That's not where we want to be, in the energy and information flow right here, right now. The future is made of numerous amounts of presence being stacked up. And they were great teachers, and they walked this planet in a lot of, obviously, this psycho spiritual terrain. But now we're here, and we're here together, and we need to walk it in present time and
I
walk
love it.
us ourselves out of this suffering.
And I can't wait for him to say, I'm always young. Okay. Here's Sai Baba colorized, the one from 100 plus years ago. Nice guy. Mr. Miracles, Tight with Angels. He straddles three religions or philosophies, Hinduism, Islam, and Buddhism, if I didn't say that one. Catch what you can catch. Catch a temple incense smell one more time, or the luscious, deepest jungle from India that we all wish we could not be eaten by tigers in the middle of that jungle, but the highest vibe. And for folks at home, this is a great photograph. Also, Audrey Hepburn's on the first page of my website. Let her move, wink, smile in that photo. But here he can move an ear, wink, smile. I'll try to hold it steady. And what are you getting from Sai Baba? Sri Shirdi Sai Baba, to be polite.
Is that question being thrown to me now?
Yes.
Yes. Well, to continue with this idea of the heart opening and the playful mischievousness, like, they're important ingredients, and they're almost like, what do I want to say? Not definitely not red flags, but signs on the path. Like, am I that the open, the receptivity? That's also sort of a subtext or a theme that we've been talking about. It's this openness and this receptivity, and love and joyful play are in there. And yeah, that's what I was getting.
I've got a final figure for you, a Ganesh. But here, this is private. Just hear words of encouragement for that film that's still on the cutting room floor or a work in progress. Here's Ganesh for you. If you don't mind putting two hands out and asking for a wind in your sail that carries you for years to come. Yep. And here's something private about the film, but then here's something public that you can share out loud of, oh, I just got some very good encouragement. And if you want to close your eyes and catch a little vision on it as well, let's do that. All private to you, but only share something. Get something from Ganesh that he's like, okay, give this to the crowd, but the rest is for you. At home, ask for what you need. Ask for a surprise that you didn't know, and ask for just wind in your sail. You're a ball of light. Ask to be accompanied by your angels, by your relatives, loving, all unconditional love figures here, and by the universe itself. Whatever your lingo is, use it. What'd you get? You got to share something here.
I love Ganesh. Just a side note, just not life size, but a massive sort of 6-foot painting in my son's room. Ganesh and Kali Ma are two of the deities that we have just massive size paintings in our home. If anybody connects with me on Instagram, I have them somewhere on my Instagram feed. So I am privy to seeing beautiful painting of Ganesh all the time. And again, this playful removing of obstacles, right? That's what Ganesh signifies. And his big ears, he can hear, he listens. And we also want to remember that, like the big belly and the enjoyment in the listening. And yeah, for me, I was just getting encouragement for the projects that I have down the line, which includes another book, as well as potentially that film.
Good. I have one more figure for you. It's the one, the tiger, the divine mother's on a tiger. Durga, or today, of course, I figured out that that's Shakti, which I'm sticking with that name now. She's part of the crew, but let's stick with the tiger. It's not a spirit animal, deity, action on everyone's team, if no one minds me saying that out loud. People have been feeling the fur. If you have a part of your room that's the more open part and you have a huge dog walking by and you were to feel the back go by, but this is a tiger, so feel tiger fur. It's up to you if you want to stick your arm out to the open side of the room. You can feel that tiger walk by. Pure action on everyone's team. This one can rivet people like up and down the spine, like you described with the yoga instructor. Allow, 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 no try iota. Always try Archangel Gabriel. It's not about the words, let go. And what are you getting as a reminder for us all? He speaks.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm getting ferocity, and I'm going to unpack that for a second. Because people oftentimes think in the spiritual transformational process, it's all light and love or whatever. But we have to have boundaries. That's the idea of the discernment and the linkage. You neither want to be overlinked and you don't want to be dissociated, but you want to be discerned. You want to know where to set good boundaries. And sometimes you need a touch of ferocity in order to do that. So that to me is what the tiger was bringing forward. Don't hesitate to be fierce when you need to be fierce, because it's important to make sure your boundaries are in the appropriate place.
Oh, I love it. Look, what's a final reminder to us all about how we've got everything? We might not know it. How do we wake up to, and you finish the rest here. What's your final?
Well, we have everything. Knowledge is structured in it. As one of my colleagues is known for saying, the best place to store knowledge is in other people. We need each other. We can do this. We got to do it together. And like all the factions of people that close down, whether it is around religion or nationalism or whatever, it's fine to, again, have a boundary and have some sort of an identity, but you can't, once you start, again, too much dissociation and you forget where the linkage is, then we're in problems. So we have to do this together, where one species can't kill our habitat. We need to respect Mother Earth, and yeah, we need each other and we need our planet. So we got the knowledge. Let's do it.
Beautiful. Okay, and we're Angels, Positivity, and Love, the show. We're wrapping up. I'm going to ask a completely redundant question at this point. Leanne, do angels exist?
Absolutely.
I had to
Absolutely.
get that in. I haven't asked it in many, many shows now. Thank you so much, Dr. Leanne Whitney. You are incredible. Your website, all your info will be below the video. You're a treat to have on. People should check out her. Paul Sugar, 50 years plus mindfulness meditation teacher, taught at Omega once, did remote viewing, knew probably or met Russell Targ. I think, he was in the same Stargate program, US government, didn't know it was CIA at the time, got right out. But also Iwan Briak, Welsh theater director, non-duality teacher, so wonderful. Watching these three interact, they knew immediately they had clicked, and they're doing this again in April of 2024. So please check in to see them again. Go watch their other panel. And please put a comment on this, like, subscribe, check out Leanne's work. I'll make sure I put an Amazon link in for the East Meets West Consciousness book. Leanne, thank you very much for being on the show.
Oh my God. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I look forward to coming back in April. And yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.